Hi, everyone. It's the Beauty Shaman, and I'm here today to talk to one of my friends who's so awesome. Her name is Tiffany Josephs, and she is an awakening coach and life designer. Isn't that an amazing title? From her website, Magic Carpet Life. And we are going to talk about feminine power and accepting and loving yourself. Oh my God. Thank you, Tiffany, for joining me.
Thank you so much for the invitation.
Yeah, it's great to have you. And just so the audience knows, you and I have been friends for super duper long time, like way before any of this stuff. So like how long? I'm trying to think, like, is it 15, 20 years, something like that?
Yeah, or lifetimes.
Or lifetimes, that's right. We've known each other for a super long time. We knew each other in Washington, D.C. We knew each other here. We moved to Boulder about the same time. So we have a very rich history, you and I. Yeah, and I've watched you grow and expand. You've watched me grow and expand. So that's great. Let's launch into what Magic Carpet Life is all about and what you're doing. Because this is, I think, a very powerful lesson. Not even lesson, that's not even a great word, but it's a super powerful message for women about loving and accepting themselves. And I love your Magic Carpet Life. So let's talk about what that is, where that kind of comes from. Let's delve into that a little bit.
Sure. I actually love the word lesson
Yeah.
because that's the journey. That's the whole point. If I'm not showing up every day, working, learning the lesson, then I can't do my work. You can't do your work. And we were chatting before pushing play here, and we were talking about how that question, when does this get easy?
Yeah.
Does it ever get easy? And I think that when you're in the experience of life, some days it feels like art and music and all those notes are working together. And then there are other days that are just like, ooh, the lesson feels a little more thick and foggy, and that's okay. And that's really so much of what I do and what I'm about is whatever the energy is that we are working with, whatever the lesson is, that we're in it. We're not moving around it. We're not avoiding it. We're not judging it or calling it something other than just life.
Yes.
This is where we are. And I know that there's a lot of esoteric nature to what I do. I love playing in those magical realms. Magic Carpet Life is a magic carpet ride. And a lot of it is calling upon the powers of the imaginary realm, the powers of unlimited possibilities and all of that, magical, infinite kind of space, but it's bringing it down into the everyday. Because my life, I don't live in a mountaintop. I don't live in Sedona, or not that people who live in Sedona are like, not living in real life, but there's a lot of places that you could be on the planet where you can somewhat escape mass consciousness. You can somewhat live outside of, and some of my friends do, which is amazing. But my life path, my personal journey is very much ordinary, living in the ordinary and finding the magic in that space. And not just when I say magic, it's finding the fun and the joy within the limitation of time and space and the construct of, a mortgage and a husband and kids and the soccer field. I'm a soccer mom. There's choices that I've made. The canvas that I have chosen to work with in this life is very everyday. It can be mundane. And there are times, you know, like I was chatting, I need a vacation from it. Because that lifestyle, I mean, creating magic in the mundane, creating a liberated life, one that is liberated on the inside, is not the easiest thing when you are constantly working within like a family,
Yes.
or you have a partnership
So
and you
let's
have all theirs.
I love this. And I think this is so great. And what you said was that was such a great sentence about creating magic within the mundane. And I think that is what you do. That is what you do so beautifully, is to take the mundane, which is you're married, you have 2 kids, you're a soccer mom, you cook meals, you know what I mean? You work, you've got all this stuff going on, right? And yet you make magic out of that. And I think I want to go into that even more and talk about, having fun, and with the magic carpet ride, and femininity, and having fun within that. Because as women, we get so lost in our role. And you brought up roles, which I think is a great point. I get lost in my role of mom and worker bee. So how to make that fun? I mean, it's a huge struggle for me. I tend to be an overworker. I'm a little workaholic, a little bit, I definitely veer. I'm definitely down that path. So I've got to always go, okay, wait, you need to do fun. And my kids tell me, Mom, you got to get out and do something fun. I'm like, oh yeah, oh God, I don't even know what that means. So I don't think I'm alone in this. I know I'm not alone in this. So let's go down that path, because you do a beautiful job of negotiating that. So let's talk about
Yes.
that.
Okay. Oh man.
This is the struggle, right? This is the struggle.
It is. It's real life. And I think it gets more and more challenging the more connected we are to our potential.
Right.
Because as we tap into what we can do, as we tap into who we are as soul,
Yeah.
who we are as creators, it becomes more challenging to stay grounded in that, and to not feel like superhero women, that we can do all of this, and then saying yes all the time. And so what I've been working with right now, and how it's been showing up for me, is that I love working within time. One of the biggest challenges in my life is my relationship with time.
Uh,
And what that looks like is I am right there with you. I am I love working. I love creating. I love starting things. I'm not the best at finishing things, but I love coming in and just starting things and throwing paint on the wall, and, and that experience. But the challenge with that is, how can I be happy with the moment?
yeah.
How can I be at peace with the moment, and not be so obsessed with what I call there? So there's here, right now, in the sunlight, in this room, talking to you. And then there's there. So here and there. And there, my relationship with there is when that's finished, when that culminizes, when that abundance flows in from that creation. And I sometimes, and most of the time, if I'm honest, feel the tension between, when are we there? Are we there yet?
Right.
Question, the pinnacle question that we ask, we asked it when we were kids. When I was a teenager, I remember the feeling of like, oh my God, I can't wait to be 16, or oh my God, I can't wait to be 21. And then it's like, oh my God, I wish I were 21 again.
Yeah. Yeah.
The challenge that we have as creators and as awakened women, to live and reconcile with where we are right now, and being fully at peace and at home with here and now, and not over identify or or freak out too much about um, the there, you
Right.
know. And it's really this piece of most of the time, if I'm in my mind, I'm feeling like things aren't moving fast enough. I'm feeling like, or things are moving too fast and they're not showing, but it's not showing up fast enough. And there's all kinds of projection that happens. But when I can be fully in my body and really happy with how this feels right now, how the light feels on my skin, how the colors are that I might be putting, my colors that I'm putting out there, you know, those kinds of things, that's when we start having fun. And I think it's a challenge though, because so much of our time is spent in our head measuring and qualifying um, what success looks like and what fun looks like, instead of just in this moment. This moment really is all we have. And how we experience that, yeah, we might have that in Zen meditations, you know, or we know that conceptually that all we have is now, but still managing our lives and our schedules and our homes and our relationships, being in the moment. It's a very different way of living.
So, one thing I just realized, you worked corporate America. I mean, you were in the thick of Washington, D.C., corporate America. I can't remember exactly what you did, but you were like full on, professional woman, and you did all of that. And now you're living very differently. You're still working, but it's a very different way. So maybe, and I think you're right. Like everything you said was so true. Like we got to stay here. We got to stay now. And we have to deal with what's going on around us, and trying to enjoy our life and be feminine within all of that. So maybe you could talk a little about that experience from going from, this heavy duty corporate America success to where you are now, which is, yes, you're still successful, but you're thinking and you're living differently, and that switch.
Yeah, I mean, there was a time, God, when was this? So I moved to Denver 6 years ago.
Right.
And that shift for me was huge because I was working as a consultant, as a government contractor. And, I remember there were all kinds of moments and synchronicities for me when I knew that I needed to move out of that space. You know, when you outgrow your current reality. For me, I remember being in an office, and they used to have their meetings in the war room. They actually called it the war room. And I remember laughing about it and talking to these guys like, why do you call it the war room? And they kind of looked at me like, why wouldn't we call it the war room? And I thought, oh my God, but that was the paradigm. And that was so much of me. I really believe that all of us have this male and female energy, and we're always working within these, we're always working on how can I be more productive and structured and more in my male, and how can I be more assertive, and then how can I be more receiving and flowing, and, and and within our feminine. And up until that point, I had stifled my feminine energy. I had hidden her because I didn't know. And when I say her, when I say the feminine for me, it was my creativity. I definitely use my creativity. I definitely, was friendly with people. When I'd show up, I was still warm, and I loved inviting her, but I didn't know how to match those two. I didn't know how to be in my feminine energy and my masculine without one of them taking over.
Right.
And so for me, when I moved to Denver, I started my own business. And I started sort of flirting with what does an online business look like? But the problem with that initially, the challenge that I had, is that I completely swung to one side. I went to the other side of the pendulum where I was like so burnt out. I like put my masculine energy in the corner, And I was like, I'm just going to play, and I'm just going to be this divine oracle lady. And then, you know, that lasted for so long until it didn't, because to have a business and to be able to create, you have to have these underlying functions and a healthy respect for structure and business. And I'm wired for those things. I love business, and I love balancing and reconciling and all of the nature of the male energy inside of me. So the past 6 years of my life have been, how do I have structure and feel safe in the structure and still have fun and not feel limited by the things that I need to do in life in order to function.
Yes.
And so having fun, the feminine cannot feel free and have fun unless she feels safe. And I think I had to figure out how to create that within, you know, but so now I'm really like, I have this life design company, and I'm doing media, and I'm still working within those two, but it's challenging, because the more creative I get, the more I like want to leave my body and be like in my head all the time and just like working on all these projects. And like every day and every moment I have to keep pulling myself back in order to stay in the energy of it, to stay fully alive. Like that's my goal right now. If nothing else in my life, I just want to live fully turned on. I want to live fully activated, and all parts of me, not just the feminine fun parts, but the hard parts, like the fatherly, parental parts of me that are like, okay, you can't spend money on that, Tiffany, because you don't have the money there. Like, I don't like to hear that part. My feminine is like, wee, you know? But it's like, that's how we feel whole. And I think have this truly enjoyable experience in life is when we can respect those two forces within us.
Well, I think you've just described the challenge, you know, and I think for most of us, I don't know if you're like, you mean, you described it so beautifully, but I get stuck in my masculine as well. And I get, you know, business, you know, and I got on the email and I got on my website, and, you know, I crank it, right? And then at night I'm sitting there going, what happened? Like, where am I? I don't even know what I like. Wait, fun? What do I like to do for fun? Let me text a friend. Like, who should I text? You know, I just get, like, I just hit this wall. And I think, you know, for most women, especially, I mean, you know, I'm a single parent, so there's nobody else, right? There is, but he's, anyway, say Libby. But it's like, I get so locked in. So I think the idea of playing, I like your idea of playing within the scope of our reality, and also taking care of ourselves within that, or making decisions to get out of whatever isn't working. You know, obviously those are very personal decisions.
Yeah.
But maybe you could kind of get practical with some ideas for women on how to manage, how to get, you know, some practicals about, okay, I'm in my masculine all day long, I'm in business or whatever. How do I then switch off? I have a difficult time switching sides. It's like I'm in my masculine, and suddenly to push that feminine button, it's like I have to kind of be super cognizant and go, okay, wait a minute. Yeah, I'm a girl, and I like men, and oh yeah. Like, I have to kind of go, you know, go there. Otherwise I end up like how we've been so programmed in our society, which is the war room, right? We're so programmed with that. And it's so unfortunate that the feminine mystique, the feminine sexuality gets very suppressed within that. And so, you know, let's get practical here on some things women can do.
Yeah. Well, I think if you were to match the highest expression of male and the highest expression of female energy, it's about planning for joy,
Wow,
or
that's brilliant.
planning for pleasure.
So let's just take that in for a minute. I just love that sentence. I'm going to write that down, and I'm so going to do that all day long. Planning for joy, not just entertainment. I think what the word you use is super important, because like I'm going to the movies tonight with my kids. So that's entertainment. That's not joy. So
Yeah.
let's differentiate that with joy. Like, what brings joy to you? Because what brings joy to one person is not the same as what brings joy to another. So maybe you could kind of go into that too.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think when we can, as I touch my chest, I think that we can really use our bodies and respect our bodies as our own barometers for that, right? And this is a moment to moment thing. So I'm in the car driving my kids to school this morning, and I check in with my body because I'm like, my thoughts are moving in some places, and I realize like, oh, I don't like what I'm thinking about. So I check in with my body, and I realize, oh yeah, I feel anxious about that, or I don't need to go on that freight train of thought. So let me just get in here and let me tune into the space of the car right now. My son's in the back seat, my daughter's in the back seat. Let me tune into them and ask a question that might create interesting conversation or laughter, or let me put on a funny song or play some Bon Jovi and shift the space. I feel like as women, we have such incredible power to shift the space of a room, either for ourselves or for others. Like, we have the power in our feminine energy to completely change the atmosphere. And so when we can have intention with that power during the day, sometimes it's intentional. Sometimes when you're planning your day, you have your list of all the tasks that need to happen. I've got to pick up dry cleaning. I've got to go to Costco. I've got to do this. And then I've got all these things with my business. And then there's the other side that says, this side is, what am I doing for play? And that might be, well, it's going to be a beautiful day. So let me also make sure that in addition to these tasks, I'm walking around barefoot in my yard. I'm going to take a hot bath, or I'm going to get dressed a little more feminine today. Like, they're all if we can do that in tandem with each other, whether it's during the day, intentionally planning for it, or in the moment as we're in the car driving with our kids, we're using our bodies as barometers for what's going to feel good in this moment. And not just what's going to feel good, but even how I'm viewing my tasks lately is, I might have a sheet of all, like, this is my days lately, full of tasks. And I look at that going, it might not feel good to do those, to look at those tasks, but it sure feels good when those tasks are done. And so that's still the driving force of feeling good. And I think to our, and even that word feeling good, yes, there's high expressions of that and there's low expressions for that. I'm talking about the high, respecting our soul, respecting our body sense of feeling good, not just the escapist, feeling good. Like, I'm just going to get high and fly away from all of this so I can, I'm not talking about escapism. I'm talking about really entering into your life and taking full responsibility for how you want to feel.
And some of that is is actually sitting down and making yourself go, okay, what, like you mentioned that when we were talking before I pushed play, was you had to sit down and ask yourself some questions, like what whatever you were asking yourself. But you are great at just going inward and going, okay, what is important to me? Where are my values? And you've really developed that skill really well. I think I've done a really good job developing that skill for what I want to create with my business. I've not done such a great job with myself because I tend to be so like workaholic. So it's something, I think it's a skill that women kind of got to work at, right? Just because we've been so programmed out of that when it used to be such a culturally accepted thing. Now it's not. So maybe you could talk about that skill and helping women to develop that skill.
Well, it is really practical, but if we're just practical about it and not purposeful with it,
Right.
that's when the frustration comes, because that's when it's the hamster wheel, when we're repeating things that, you know, we're not getting the lesson because we're just working on the surface. But if we can really tune into the purpose, and there's all kinds of work out there on living purpose driven lives and passion and purpose and starting with why. But I can't tell you how valuable it's been for me personally to create my own purpose statement. And some people like to differentiate, you know, a purpose statement from a mission statement, from a vision statement, and there's whatever, you know, that's fabulous. And I've done that before for my business, but I'm talking about really for yourself. What is the soul purpose? What is the directional, you know, shooting the arrow? Where do you want it to land when you're thinking about legacy? And not just when I say legacy, that's sort of like the outcome of your life, but legacy as the experience. And for me, my purpose statement is that a great way to start it is to say, I am here to ... Because you're tapping into your I am power, you're tapping into that soul identity. And for me, that statement is, I am here to romance the world to a higher love. And I say that every week when I get on my podcast, because it shoots that arrow. It not only reminds me, but it puts out that message to the universe that says, hi, I'm here to romance the world to a higher love. And then I begin to draw in those experiences and those people that I want to have to support me in that purpose. So I think it's really important before we even start getting practical about it, that we go inward and that is really aligned and established. Because if I wake up turned on by my purpose every day, those things that aren't going to support my purpose, they kind of fall away.
Right.
I mean, I might flirt with them a little bit and get burned, you know, which we all do in life, to learn the lesson deeper. But for the most part, I'm radiating that purpose. And the other stuff's non-negotiable.
Right.
Like, I just don't have time for things that aren't going to help me be in that higher love.
So you're saying really what women need to do is sit down and figure out what is their purpose? Why are they here? What are they creating? What do they value? Not just values, you're talking about soul connection. I mean, you're really going esoteric with this. And I think I completely agree with you. I mean, I think, you know, one of the greatest definitive moments of my life was connecting to why am I here? I mean, I'm not just here to kind of pay my bills and get a nice job. And I remember saying to myself, I just need a good job. That's all. I mean, I'm really content. I'm really happy. And I think the big waking moment was, that's the biggest load of BS I've ever said in my life. I am not happy with just some moment. When in my life have I ever been happy with just some job? Like that's BS. I want to say bullshit, but I don't want to have YouTube censor me.
Say it.
But it's like, you know, what do you want? And I think it could be really simple. Like, I don't think it even needs to be this big, like, you're out to change the world. And I love that about you. I've kind of got the whole like crusader thing going on as well. But I know other women that they really don't want to change the world. That's not what they really want. They want to like be at home and they want to cook. They want to create like maybe family or a neighborhood of love, or, you know, I think it doesn't have to be this big, you know, I'm the Knight's Crusader for feminine, you know, power. It doesn't have to be that way. But I do think you're right in that, starting with purpose and what that is and accepting that. Because I think a lot of it is self-acceptance, isn't it? With where am I and what am I doing in this lifetime?
Absolutely. And when you do go too big, make it smaller.
Yeah.
Meaning, in my purpose statement, yeah, sure, it could mean the whole world. But really for me, that means if I want to have influence and leave an imprint on the planet, It starts in my morning. It starts in my car rides with my kids. It's cultivated in how do I speak to my husband when I'm making dinner. It's real. It's like I speak to people all the time who have these think that they need to have this big grandiose, because we think purpose, it's intimidating, but it really is. It's back to that every day. How can I make how can my purpose make my day, make this moment, how can I bring it into this moment?
Right.
So yeah, instead of getting intimidated thinking that it needs to be like a Jerry Maguire thing, and 100 pages long or whatever, it's really just going back to what are my gifts and how do I want to bring it?
Yeah.
And if you don't know that, then you should hire a coach or hire somebody,
Like
start
you.
Magic Carpet Life, to go into that discovery process. Because as you know, you and I have really invested our energies into that exploration. We've gone in and we've had to choose to be unafraid of our light, to be unafraid. It takes a fearlessness. I am no longer going to be afraid of what I find in there. I'm going in because it's, again, no longer, I'm not allowing myself to be hidden anymore. And I think so much of us as men or women, but especially women, we are afraid to we're just afraid of, I mean, all of it. The psyche is a scary place, right? What we have kept in the shadows is not so fun to carry out, but we have to do that work if we want to truly be happy. Happiness is not what do I want to say? It's not something we just arrive into. It's something that we cultivate.
Yes. Well, I completely agree with you. And I think taking responsibility for your own happiness and your own journey and your own life, because it's so convenient to push it on everybody else, but I don't allow myself that luxury anymore. I think it just doesn't work. It's so ineffective. And really the luxury of the real luxury of taking responsibility and owning it, and then your own joy, your own happiness is you and you creating. And I think you've done that. You've gone from that, total masculine, world to finding balance and figuring it out. And I think this is great, and I think so many women are going through this now. So many women I know are experiencing this and trying to figure out, wait a minute, what brings me joy? Not making sure my family's okay, because we're such caretakers, right? I mean, I'm absolutely that way, and want everybody to be happy, which is a great feminine gift, but then there's also come home to yourself, right?
Yes, and I'll tell you, the greatest gift you can give yourself, to come home to yourself. The greatest gift that you can give yourself to create a home, if anybody listening is, that could be part of your purpose, is to create a beautiful home and to be home to others, is really that shift from victimhood to creator.
Right.
And, a lot of people would never identify themselves with being a victim, although our behavior oftentimes will say otherwise.
Yes.
So for me, when I started to really when I started to have my awakening, as I call it, where, I moved from corporate and the way that I had lived in my life and been a wife to my husband, it wasn't working anymore. There were serious changes that needed to be made. I was so wrapped up in the victim-y energy of my life. Like, why did I get married at 21? And why did I go and take this path? And why, like, every choice that I had made in my life, instead of being empowered by it. I just like was just feeling the victim of it, and I wasn't taking responsibility. There was just all kinds of heaviness around that time. But what began to change everything was when I realized that I had a choice. And when I owned that choice, like I have a choice, or even I chose to be married to this man, and I choose today to be married to this man. And no matter what kind of relationship you have, you might have a really healthy relationship, and or you don't, or maybe you don't have a healthy relationship. It doesn't matter. That power to choose in that moment is the greatest gift you can give yourself. To choose to make a healthy meal, to choose to take care of yourself that day, take a shower and get dressed and feel beautiful, to choose to book yourself a massage, or, you know, even mundane things like paying your electric bill. And when you see things as a choice for taking care of yourself or for creative expression, it changes the energy so much.
Yeah. Well, I totally agree with that. And did somebody sneeze? I just heard a really loud noise. That sounds really funny. With you, anyway, it kind of totally distracted me. I thought, did my dog just sneeze? Anyway, I think that's great, Tiffany. And I kind of on that note, I want to close out. And I think we've talked about some really valuable things from, the feminine spirit, connecting to your soul, life purpose. I mean, my gosh, we've covered a huge amount of things. And so I guess as a closing note, what would you like women to know? What is your kind of base message to women that you feel like, okay, everybody, let's grasp this? Like, what would that be? What would be your base message?
I would say to everybody listening that we are always supported, but especially right now, there is this auspiciousness or this beautiful tipping point that's happening. And whatever your soul purpose is, it's like the universe is holding a microphone to your heart right now. And there is just more and more support that's available to us, whether that's angelic or cosmic or spiritual or physical around us. And that whatever kind of life we want to create, now is the time to do it, because that support is available to us more than any other time. And I believe that on a consciousness level. I believe that on just on a soul level, that the time has never been more ripe for creating a soul satisfying lifestyle.
That's wonderful. That's very powerful, because I don't think that's what people mostly feel. Mostly they feel sort of burdened, and and you and I even, man, we get burdened and wrung out and overworked and all that stuff. But I think keeping that in your mind is so helpful, that no, I am supported. And I think as women, we got to feel that we are absolutely supported by the energies around us, by the angels, or whatever you want to classify that as. I think we are really supported. So that's beautiful, Tiff. Thank you.
Thank you, honey. I love this conversation.
I do too. It's wonderful. It's all about feminine power and women taking over. It's not taking over in a negative way, but in a positive way, and really owning our beauty and owning our joy. So I love that. I love your message, Tiff. I love you as a person. I think you're just divine. You've got such a divinity about you, and I love that. So thank you so much for joining me today on The Beauty Shaman, and just being your wonderful, beautiful self.
Thank you, Suzanne.